I don't necessarily expect that to happen. That being said, when we look at the matchups for the Irish offense against that Ohio State defense, not a lot of matchup edges for Notre Dame in that regard. So when we're talking about the top two teams in the country when it comes to scoring defense, the top two teams in the country when it comes to yardage defense, why should we expect anything other than a relatively low scoring affair? I know Notre Dame got over the total against Penn State last week. Ohio State didn't against Texas, and that came with a big defensive score in that contest. I look for a low-scoring game tonight. I don't see either offense lighting up the scoreboard. And we've seen the line tick down, 45.5. There's still 46 out there. Looking at the free WagerTalk Live odds screen, I wouldn't argue with anyone that wanted to grab one of those 46 and bet it under the total for this evening, because I'm not expecting points and bunches for either side.
Yeah, and Ted, let me ask you about, big games. We often see these games open up in the second half. And you mentioned that Penn State game. It was 20 total points after three quarters, and they still found a way to get it up and over because of that fourth quarter. How do you think this game plays out? Is it slow at the start? Maybe we talk about that a lot with the Super Bowls over the years. First quarter, first halves are a little bit lower scoring sometimes in the second half. So are there any alternative ways to play this? Because the look-ahead line a week ago was going to be about 47-48. And it opened around that 46 range. So we have seen it already drop, and now it's 45, which is a semi-key number. Any alternate ways to maybe play the total that you've looked at also?
So total opened 45 at Circa, 47.5 at Westgate, 46 at South Point, 45.5 at DraftKings, 45 in the global markets. So it was as high as 47.5. That being said, 47.5 was an outlier number. Most of the books opened 45, 45.5, and that's where we're sitting right now. When it comes to, as we saw this past weekend, and as we'll talk in just a minute when we break down a little bit of NFL action, these lines are tight. All right. 3 of the 4 NFL games were legit middles this past weekend. That's how tight these lines are. So yes, we could see a blowout. Yes, we could see a 7-3 final score that stays way under. But when it comes to the alternatives at the plus prices, all right, let's go, under 41.5 and get a plus price, or the alternative lines. I don't have any interest in those when it comes to these type of games. Those are recreational plays. I'm not a recreational bettor.
Yeah, by the way, Ohio State now up to 8.5, even some 9s out there. South Point, bookmaker all shores. So we're seeing it come back because it was as high as 9.5 when it opened. Quickly came down to that 8.5, really 8 during this past week. It's now coming back up a bit. 8.5, 9, not key numbers unless you take an intentional safety at the end of the game. And let's transition into that, Teddy. How much money changed hands on that? It's funny, too, because Buck and Aikman were in the booth, and Buck kind of made an Al Michaels reference. I don't know why he's scared to talk about the point spread, because every network has some affiliation with the book nowadays, it seems. The over-under was never in jeopardy there, but it's interesting. That obviously made a big difference. And, of course, Houston makes their extra point, and in case he goes up 10, maybe they don't take the intentional safety, I was thinking, as well, is what's so insane about that whole scenario. So it was pretty wild. And I'll tell you what, Teddy, the announcers did not see it coming because they never even mentioned it prior to the snap. So I thought that was a little bit of a surprise for people.
I didn't see it coming. I mean, did you think?
I didn't.
Did you
no,
think
I did
Casey's
not
going to run
either.
18?
It was not on my radar.
That was from the 18-yard line, and it's the right move. Andy Reid made the right
Probably
move.
was.
Yeah. I can't argue with that at all. I mean, when you're up 11, you can take the safety, you can kill time off the clock, you can avoid any chance of a miscue play, and you can cut the lead to 9, which makes no difference for Kansas City because it's not a one-score game. So it's the right move for Andy Reid. Now, had it gone from 10 to 8, which it wouldn't have because he wouldn't have taken the safety if it was an 8 situation, but had it gone from 10 to 8, that would have been a huge difference. At 9, all the bettors that laid 8, and it was 8 all week, 8.5 all week, all those bettors cashed. The sharp guys who took the plus 9.5 at the end, and that was, they cashed as well. But that was only one of 3. Let's not forget Philly, LA. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Philly, LA, that was as
involved.
low as 5.5. That closed 7. That lands 6. Let's not forget Buffalo, Baltimore. Lands 52. Where'd that total go all week? bounced 51.5, 52, 52.5, back and forth, back and forth. If you lost on any of those three games, it's not about your handicapping skills. It's betting skills.
Yeah,
You're supposed to push or win regardless of what side you had on three of the four. Again, one's a total. But there were three legit side/middles over the weekend. And what the opening line report, when I do the opening line report every Monday, we talk about all the games that just happened. We delve deep into the box scores. I go through any meaningful quotes that I think might have an impact on the game. We go through the matchups for this week. I talk about the look-ahead lines. We got look-ahead lines that were set up for the two conference championship games. So we'll talk about how much this past week result has affected the point spreads here. We'll talk about where the money opened. We'll talk about where it's going. We'll talk about, do you want to bet this now on Monday morning? Do you want to wait till closer to kickoff, depending on what type of, what side or total you're interested in? And I do that as accurately as possible. I've been doing it for 20 plus years, this opening line report. Everyone that watches it, and the comments are incredible. People love the show. If you haven't watched it, check it out today. Myself and Drew Martin at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel.
And I want to get to an NBA game with you in a moment here, so we're not going to take a deep dive into next Sunday's games, Washington, Philly, and Buffalo, KC, because I want people to watch the opening line report and get more in-depth analysis. Right now, we've seen Philly as a 5.5-point favorite, 48. The look-ahead line I saw at some books this past weekend was 6. I thought that looked a little low because I'm thinking if the Commanders pull the upset, it's going to be a junk win, Philly with revenge. But, even with the 5-0 turnover edge, I went back and looked at the drive charts. I still had Washington winning the game, whereas I actually had Kansas City losing the game, Teddy, on the drive charts. And we see the Chiefs as a 1.5, 2-point favorite right now at home against Buffalo, total of 48.
And it's certainly worth noting, all 4 games this past weekend, the team that gained more yards lost.
Interesting.
The team that had more first downs lost. Every box score is inside out. All right. You look at Kansas City, Houston. I mean, you talked about how KC had a box score of a team that lost. Again, KC covered for most bettors at -8, -8.5, and their box score says they're supposed to lose the game outright. That's at least part of the reason why the number was as low as it was at the open for Chiefs Bills. Although we are seeing some early Kansas City money. Again, we'll break it all down in depth. Top of the hour, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here on WagerTalk TV with the opening line report, myself and Drew Martin.
Yeah, and something else I want to point out too, Teddy, is that both games yesterday had significant cold and some snow. Obviously not a lot of snow in Buffalo, but it was still on the field, and both games go over. So something else to keep in mind about how rain and snow sometimes vastly overrated. Whereas the Chiefs, not really windy, but there were some gusts called for, and they showed up at times. That game stayed well under. I don't think it was really necessarily a factor in that, but something to keep an eye on. I have not looked at the weather reports yet. Philly, obviously, Kansas City is something we will have to check this week because they're 2 cold weather cities. We'll see. And Teddy will have more on that in the opening line report here in an hour. So deep dive into both title games for Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 Pacific. And don't forget, it's archived 24/7 all week long here on WagerTalk TV. Click the bell when you subscribe for instant alerts. We'll also have a ton of free play videos. I will be doing breakdowns on both of those games later this week. And I do have a standalone free play video for Notre Dame, Ohio State on the channel right now. So check out all the free play content here on WagerTalk TV. And if you're liking it, comment below, thumbs up, like, and we will keep it coming. All right, Teddy, MLK Day. So we've got a lot of daytime, also pro basketball, a little bit of nighttime action as well. I'll tell you what, let's look at the Bulls Clippers here. What's something you're looking at in this game? And this one, I believe, is what time does this one tip off, Ted? I don't.
Late night
That's why I
bailout
couldn't
special,
find it.
10:40 Eastern.
Yeah. So why is
This
that?
one's
Is that
late.
that's a makeup game from the Fires, if I'm not mistaken? Why is that a write-in game?
It was scheduled for tomorrow. They played it for tonight. I can't tell you why. I don't know why it was switched for tomorrow versus tonight. This is not the Fire games. Charlotte's going to be the team that has to deal with that. They lost a pair of Fire games, and they're going to have to make them up at some point in the season where there's not a whole lot of makeup time for Charlotte. But right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. Bulls, Clippers, Clips -6.5 at most books. Total sitting at 227.5. Both teams on the second of back-to-back. Both teams in very different mindsets right here. The Bulls are in free fall. All right, they've lost 5 straight. They lost bad at the Blazers last night. The last 4 losses have all come as favorites. New Orleans, Atlanta, Charlotte at home, and then Portland to open this road trip. That being said, they are 4-1 ATS, their last 5 as dogs, but 5 straight losses, second of back-to-backs off a particularly demoralizing defeat last night against a team they think they're supposed to be beating. The Clips, on the other hand, they're rolling, man. They're off a very satisfying blowout over the Lakers last night. That was the first time the Lakers had played in the new Intuit Dome at, out in Inglewood. So the Clips certainly were up for that game, and they blew them out. Now they're on the second of back-to-backs, but it's not just a second of back-to-backs for the Clips. They have 3 consecutive sets of back-to-backs. They're playing 6 games in 9 days, and this is the second game of the middle set. It is a grueling stretch for the Clips. All right. They're not going to have Kawhi Leonard this evening. I don't know. And he scored 19 yesterday against the Lakers. I don't know that we haven't heard anything about James Harden yet. Harden's been playing most of these, but I heard some buzz that he might sit today's game, which will certainly be an issue and will certainly affect this point spread. We'll see Chicago money if Harden doesn't play. But that being said, the early money has come for the Clippers. This line opened 6 and is now 6.5. So it looks like the markets think Harden is going to play as of right now, even with Kawhi out. LA won both games last year by double-digit margins. It has not been a particularly competitive series. So we have the Clippers rolling. We have the Clippers dominating the series. All these signs pointing towards LA. That being said, there's one thing that makes me looking. Well, there's 2 things that make me look at the Chicago side. First, in terms of urgency, there's urgency for the Bulls. There's no urgency for the Clips tonight, period. Chicago's slumping. They had a particularly bad loss last night. Clips a little bit fat and happy. The second issue, and what might be the best bet for tonight, but I haven't confirmed yet that he's going to play. Lonzo Ball, an LA kid. LeVar Ball's been chirping about him to get a trade to the Clippers. He wants his kids to play in LA. Ball hasn't played an NBA game in his hometown since November of 2021. I believe he's going to play tonight. Now, Ball's been coming off the bench. Kobe White had a lousy night last night. Josh Giddey didn't score a point last night. His first scoreless night with Chicago. I would expect Ball, if he plays, to get ample playing time, and I'll be looking at Ball props for this evening. Lonzo Ball overs. But haven't seen numbers yet. Haven't heard confirmed that Ball's going to play tonight. The lean here is the Bulls. I think the better bet might be these Ball props over. Agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate it very much, and as well as the likes and follows.
Yeah, Teddy, you basically broke down how to handicap the NBA in a nutshell there. It's all about motivation and focus, right? Looks like a more focused spot for Chicago and a no-rest back-to-back for both teams, and then also a focus spot maybe for a player. And these NBA guys can all score in their sleep, so when they want to score and they want to take over, those props are often worth a look. So check out the report to see if Ball's in the lineup. I like where you're going with that one tonight. And once again, that's a write-in game at the bottom of the schedule, the NBA schedule at 10:40 Eastern tonight. Chicago at the Clips. Clips currently a 6.5-point favorite. 227.5 is the total across the board. Teddy Covers, always great seeing you. It's like the old days here, breaking down football and basketball on Wager Talk Today Monday. You've got opening line report here in less than an hour at 1 o'clock Eastern, live Monday, archived 24/7 here on the channel. Let us know what else you got going on at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, we're on a 71% bowl run heading into the national championship game, and I'm in play on the side tonight. You can get that play on my page, wt.buzz/TC. We also have a college hoop selection, and of course, a ton of free play videos. Steve, you talked about a standalone video for Notre Dame, Ohio State. I've got one as well. Check out the Wager Talk YouTube channel each and every day. So much great content, and from Steve, from myself, and from many other quality handicappers at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, it is a great resource for free, Free, free content here on Wager Talk TV. So once again, if you're liking it, please comment below on the videos and these live shows, and also thumbs up like. More thumbs up likes and more comments, the more free play videos we do on a daily basis here on Wager Talk TV. And click that bell when you subscribe for instant alerts, when they go up each and every day. All right, we talked a little football, talked a little basketball. Teddy Covers is going to do the same here in a moment with Jesse Schule. But in between, we're going to break it up with Andrew McInnis. Talk a little hockey, NHL on Monday. Don't overlook the hockey, Andrew. And I don't follow the hockey as closely as you do, so I'll throw it over to you to break down a couple games. But first of all, what are you looking at in this Blues Golden Knights game? Teddy Covers, Golden Knights playing the Blues here on Monday.
Yeah, good to see you as always, Steve. Been too long, man. Look,
That's
things
right,
are
my
going
man.
well in the NHL right now, and I'll tell you what, right now it is about as competitive as it's been in years, Steve. It's really just good to see in all sports. You want to see parity, but right now in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, the playoff races have already begun, and it's only January where we're sitting right now. But Vegas versus St. Louis here. This is a particular spot. I mean, you just talked about focus and motivation. Steve, I always hear you reference that same thing when it comes to some of your analysis. Well, for me, I'm looking at the Vegas Golden Knights here off a 5-3 Saturday night loss against the Chicago Blackhawks, who happen to be the last place team in the entire National Hockey League. You want to talk about focus and motivation? Well, getting back on track and bouncing back has been a really, really strong bet on spot for the Vegas Golden Knights, but specifically after losses against below 500 teams. Sure, it's one thing to lose against the Winnipeg Jets. It's one thing to lose against the Edmonton Oilers, when the line is close to pick. But when you are heavy, heavy favorites and you lose outright on the money line, you need to bounce back immediately. Now, St. Louis, they lost over the weekend to Utah, so they won't be happy about that. But I'll take a motivated Vegas team over a St. Louis Blues team. But the way I've looked this season and the reason why I've had success and the clients are doing well this year in the NHL, protecting the bankroll, not releasing high prices. Now, Vegas in this particular situation, heavy, heavy favorites. So what I've decided to do is I kind of like the under because Vegas is coming off that game and give up 5 goals to a bad team. I have emphasis on defense in my mind going into this game. But Steve, I've been screwed so many times on taking under 5.5s where the favorite ends up putting up 4 or 5 and they near cover that full game over themselves. My play in this game is the team total under for the St. Louis Blues. You can get that at minus 115, minus 120. So you're taking a massive favorite on the Vegas Golden Knights, and you're still in a certain way betting on the St. Louis Blue, the Vegas Golden Knights, but you're just betting against the St. Louis Blues and their offense more so. And I think that when Vegas is off losses, when they haven't been performing to their capabilities, defense is the name of the game in bounce back performances. So, and I've been noticing that a lot lately. If you like a 5.5 game to go under, you are much better off taking one team to go under their 2.5 versus hoping the full game stays under the 5.5. There's always that empty net possibility. The game is 3-2, empty net goal. You lose 4-2 with the under. But if you take the team total under 2.5, you just have to pick which team you think will lose and take them to remain under that number.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that. I totally agree. The bringing defensive intensity in pro sports, especially, I think lacks when teams aren't focused in basketball and hockey, the daily sports. And you would expect a good effort here from a team that's coming off a bad loss. So I like where you're going with that one with the Knights and Blues tonight. Let's look at one of your teams, your Toronto Maple Leafs against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Actually, Drew Martin's Tampa Bay Lightning, perhaps, I guess we could say. Interesting matchup here. What are you doing with Lightning and Maple Leafs? This game's at 7:30 Eastern tonight on Monday.
I can't be associated with that team, Steve. I'm a Canadiens fan.
I know, you're a Canadian guy.
They kicked my team's ass over the weekend, unfortunately, after we had a 3-0 lead. So, yeah, I'm not happy, but I can't be associated with the Leafs. But I'll tell you what, we don't care about who we're cheering for with our heart. We're trying to make money. And tonight I'm taking the Maple Leafs to get the job done on the money line. And this is actually pretty interesting for people watching in Canada. This is the Amazon Prime Monday night game of the week here. It's interesting, Steve. We've never had to deal with the problem that you guys face in the States a little bit with trying to find a certain game on this network, or this network. Usually it's all the same with football, NHL, whatever it might be. But there's one game every single Monday with a Canadian team where the only spot you can watch it. Amazon Prime doing a great job with that. But I like the Maple Leafs here, and a couple different reasons why. But I'll start with this. I mentioned, and I was kind of sad as a fan, the Montreal Canadiens lost to the Maple Leafs on Saturday night after blowing a 3-0 lead. Now, some people might look at that and say, okay, the Maple Leafs, they won 7-3. They're going to be fat and sassy. They're going to be all excited coming into this game and feeling good about their previous game. But I still think with the coaching staff that they have, the leadership core that they have, regardless of winning that game on Saturday 7-3, they will not be happy with how they started the game. If they go down 3-0 early on against Tampa, they will not win and come back in that particular game. I am very confident in that. So I think that Toronto will have a really, positive outlook with their comeback against the Canadiens. However, they're going to remain focused and say, hey, look, The way we played that game is unacceptable, and we're happy to get the win, but going down 3-0 early on is not a good thing. One other thing about this Maple Leafs team, I noticed they kind of go in waves. You know, you either hear them, you're hearing the talking heads on TV or the radio saying, this team is playing unbelievable, they're riding a high right now, or it's the exact opposite where the sky is falling. So there was like a handful of games where the sky was falling for them, Steve. They lost to only a few games, and media members were asking them these ridiculous questions about why things are going wrong. And the players said back to the media guys, hey, look, it's just 3 games. It's just a couple games we lost. So they got rid of that losing streak. They've kind of got out of it, and now they're winning again. And I expect a little bit of a mini streak here for Toronto. The next thing I will say, and the final thing I'll say here, is that Tampa is on the front half of a back-to-back. They're playing Montreal tomorrow night in Montreal. They have decided to play their backup goaltender tonight and save their number 1 goaltender for tomorrow. Now, Steve, this is a new thing we've noticed coaches doing, where they almost want their better goaltender playing when the team is fatigued and the worst goaltender playing when the team is fresh, so they expect the defense to be better. The only problem is there is a huge drop-off from the number 1 goalie to the number 2 goalie on the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, you know, they're probably going to see a change of the price throughout the day here. So if you guys agree with me and you want to take the Leafs as well, I would take it sooner than later. Before WagerTalk Today started, I saw the confirmation get put out there on X about Jonas Johansson taking the net for Tampa. And if that's the case, I feel good about the Leafs.
Interesting. I like that goalie angle, something I was unaware of since I don't follow hockey on a daily basis like I used to maybe 30 years ago. But that's a very interesting angle. And have noticed also a lot of 5.5s out there. And a few years ago, we were talking, Andrew, more 6s and 7s. So things have come a little lower scoring in NHL like they have it in the NFL here. Things run cyclical in these pro sports, and teams make adjustments, and it's become a little bit of a low-scoring league, just like the NFL has here in recent years. Interesting game to finish with here. Marco D'Angelo's Pittsburgh Penguins against somebody's LA Kings, but Pittsburgh not in good current form, but LA just 4 road games. I think they only won 1 of the 4. Now they return home, I guess. You know, Clippers are back, Kings are back, so I guess they're playing games again in LA. Got to wonder about the distractions here for the Kings. Off the road trip, now back at home, might not be a good thing, yet they're a $1.80 favorite. Very curious to see how you're handicapping this game tonight.
And just to mention, Steve, about those 5.5s that you talked about, I do really think it's because of the parity right now with the league and all these teams that are fighting for these playoff spots. Although it's only January, the scoring has slowed down because a team will get a 3-2 lead. They'll go soccer mode. They'll park the bus. They'll sit back. They'll protect their leads. They're not trying to score anymore, trying to protect those leads and sit on them. Yeah, great way to tee it up for me, Steve. It's an interesting situation here for Los Angeles. Not really a great last few games for them, whether it's been on the road or at home. They haven't been playing their type of hockey. But I'll tell you what, I mean, the last 8 games, 2-6 for this Pittsburgh Penguins team. It's an absolute shame what this team has done for Sidney Crosby versus what, you know, the Capitals have done for a team, you know, like what Ovechkin is dealing with over there. Pittsburgh Penguins right now are going the wrong way. And I think the problem is that their GM has made a lot of mistakes and they have no depth around. And the thing is, in hockey, you can't just have a few players. You need to have a full team. And that's what the LA Kings have. They have a full team. They have some of the most depth in the entire National Hockey League. They have 3 lines, and it's the perfect team that makes Pittsburgh struggle. The perfect team that Pittsburgh does not match up against because they can't match up line for line. All 3 lines, top 3 lines, can score for LA. There's maybe 4 or 5 guys that can score for Pittsburgh, and that's a real problem. When I'm taking a look at betting on or against Pittsburgh, it's always team totals. And I'm sure you guys have realized these days I am a team totals player, but you talked about that price tag, Steve, on the LA Kings on the money line right now. What if I told you if they win and get to 4, I'll give you plus 105 on that price? Because that sounds a hell of a lot better to me than laying that big chalky number on the Kings. The Penguins, hey, they're trying to turn it around. This isn't the spot here. LA, focused and motivated, really good spot for them. But when any team beats Pittsburgh, typically they're giving up at least 4 goals. We'll take a big favorite into a small plus 105, LA Kings over 3.5 team total goals.
Yeah, like what I like about that too, Andrew, is there is a lot of uncertainty with the Kings here. You could see either scenario, right? They come out, you know, really have a great outing back at home, or they're still distracted. So why risk minus 180 when you get plus 105, because you're either going to be right or wrong probably by a margin in this game. And you have to win about 70% versus 50% to be right long term. So I think that makes a lot of sense. If you like the Kings, it's going to probably be impressive. If not, they might have a clunker. So why lay the big juice when you can have a plus money price with an alternate way to play it? Hey, if you like what you heard from Andrew McInnis, some NHL breakdowns about, he's a Canadiens fan. I was messing with him. Prez and Carm are the Maple Leaf fans here. But Andrew does know his hockey, as you can tell, and he has it on WagerTalk.com on a daily basis. Andrew, what else you got going on at WagerTalk this week? There's a great, by the way, 3 days, get the 4th day free special, which is about to expire after tomorrow. So if you want to try Andrew out for 3 days, you get the 4th day for free. What else you got going on, my friend?
Yeah, that's a great one as well. The 3 days, get one for free. And of course, the $11 a day special for a 7-day pass starting tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time is a really good one as well. So we've earned 25 units in the NHL over the last month. It's been really exciting, low volume. This whole weekend, I had one NHL play, but that play hit in the second period. It was also a team total. 6-0, Steve, in the NFL playoffs, all props. Dalton Schultz, over 32.5 receiving yards, hit that in one catch. I can't say the next one's going to be as easy as that one, but I sure hope it will be, guys. Great time for me to join me on that 7-day pass right now. $11 a day, $77. Join me over there. Get every single play I release. And, of course, today, early start games in the NHL. Don't miss out. Sign up for that 3-day if you like. We'll give you one extra day for free.
That's right. Don't forget our friends up north. The Canadians recognize MLK Day. We got some early NHL daytime action, and the Prez took the day off. So here you go. See, it's a double holiday for both Canadians and the Americans. And by the way, I always talk about diversification, whether it's the financial markets or the sports betting markets. I don't have a single NHL play all season. Andrew has a ton of them, and he just mentioned 6-0 in the NFL playoffs. I'm 5-0. He's had all props. I've had all sides and totals. If you had the two of us, you'd be 11-0 with no crossover so far in the NFL postseason. So it's another reason to get multiple campers. Get them too. Get multiple cappers and diversify your portfolio at WagerTalk.com. And another guy that does a lot of these standalone videos, Teddy Covers, Andrew, myself, Steve Merrill, Jesse Schule does a great job with them. He'll have some breakdowns, I'm sure, this week for basketball and football. And we're going to break some of it down right now. We've got an NBA game on the way out. Also going to take an early look, Jesse, at the conference championships. But let's start with the big game tonight, Ohio State, Notre Dame. You know, I mentioned to Teddy, and I'll see if you agree, a lot of times the point spread doesn't come into play in these big games. I think the average victory has been over 16 points the past few decades. So would it be Ohio State minus 8.5 or Notre Dame money line if you're looking at either side?
Yeah, Steve, I heard what you said to Teddy, and that's how I was planning on opening is I think you hit the nail on the head. I said the same thing when I put out a video on this game on Wager Talk TV. It's either, everybody thinks Ohio State's going to win. Everybody's on Ohio State. And as you mentioned, the Natty has been a blowout in recent seasons. You got the number of 16 over the last 25 years, but just in the playoff era alone, it's 20-plus points, the margin of victory in the Natty in the playoffs. And if it was a coin toss, I'd take Ohio State myself. But if we're talking about is there any value taking Ohio State, I don't necessarily think so. I think Ohio State has reached peak value. They played 3 straight games where they've been at the very top of their game, perfect performances. Ryan Day has done a great job coaching, and I don't think that much of Ryan Day as a coach. Will Howard, a guy that lost his job to Avery Johnson at Kansas State, has been lighting it up. I think he's due for a bad game, and I think everybody's forgotten about that last home game against Michigan, a game that they really wanted to win, a game that meant so much to them, and they found themselves frustrated against an opponent that was difficult to play against, and you ask yourself, can Notre Dame be that difficult opponent to play against? And at a money line price of better than 3-1, for me, it's worth a stab at the money line more so than laying all those points with Ohio State, based on the recency bias, the fact that they've been so good for the last three games. I don't want to be late to the party, jump on Ohio State, and end up with egg on my face. So I'd be content to take a small stab at Notre Dame to get the upset. That gets me some action on the game, and that's how I'd play this one.
Yeah, and I think another thing to point out too, Jesse. I mean, you have to always try to predict how the game's going to play out, and that's not easy to do. But you could see a scenario here where if Notre Dame gets behind, they're not a pass-based offense. They run for more than they throw, and that's not going to be their game, is having to play from behind. And that's when the wheels, I think, could come off, and we get another 16 or 20-point blowout. And it's probably more likely to be Ohio State to do the blowout. But once again, if they can keep it close, control the clock, control the line of scrimmage, which they're very capable of doing, they obviously are going to be in the game and could win outright. So I think that makes sense. Once again, if you like Ohio State, you lay the points. You don't lay the 3 to 4 to 1 on the money line. I just don't think that would make any sense. But if you like Notre Dame, they're definitely live on the money line. And the point spread normally does not matter in these games. And like Jesse said, you're getting a 3 to 1 return versus a 1 to 1 return if you play the points instead. So it's an interesting take on this game, and I think it's something to keep in mind depending on which side you like. It's, in my opinion, Ohio State point spread or Notre Dame money line, either way. Let's look at some advanced NFL for this weekend. I want to focus on what I think is the better game, and that's Bills-Chiefs. It's obviously a rematch from earlier this year, but Kansas City, despite losing, does have home field here because they won out otherwise, except for that meaningless game against Denver when nobody played. I saw an interesting stat, Jesse. There's no team that's ever won 3 straight Super Bowls. There's no team that's ever made 3 straight Super Bowls. I don't think people realize that. And the other 3 teams that have all had a chance to do it have all lost in the conference championship game over the years. So KC's trying to buck granted a small sample, but still an 0-3 trend. How do you think this one might play out next week? What's some stuff you're looking at here in the conference championships, maybe that KC game in particular?
Yeah, interesting game. I did have a 5% play on Buffalo yesterday. In my analysis for that game, I got deep into the Lamar Jackson struggles in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. And, the Twitter is all blowing up about, are people blaming Lamar Jackson or people hating on Mark Andrews? And my analysis of that game, before we get into the Buffalo, Kansas City, but just the way they lost that game, I'm going to blame Harbaugh for that. I look at Lamar's stats, 18 of 25, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick and a fumble. Very similar to last year's loss at versus Kansas City when they got eliminated from the last year's playoffs. Again, he went into that game 20 of 37, 272 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and a fumble. So both games, a pick and a fumble, in costly pick and a fumble in close games. But what stands out to me is, why is Lamar dropping back to throw the ball when you've got one of the best running games in football? The game against Kansas City last year, they only attempted 16 rushing plays. And if you remember last year's Kansas City defense and this year's Kansas City defense, one of the best in the NFL against the pass and sort of mediocre against the run. And with Baltimore's elite running game, failing to run the ball is criminal, in my opinion. And you look at yesterday's game against the Bills, only 16 rushing attempts for Derrick Henry, 6 rushing attempts for Lamar Jackson. They had to have a better game plan and be more committed to running the football. I think that's one of the things that cost them. And then we move to the Kansas City Buffalo game. You look at Buffalo, they're coming off a game where they were outgained 416 to 273 in total yards. Of course, the Ravens, 3 turnovers, kind of a dubious win for Buffalo. And now they're, it's practically a pick 'em, this game on the road at Kansas City, where Kansas City never loses. And they have probably the most advantageous referee situation anybody's ever seen. I mean, I know that the internet is in an uproar about that game against the Texans, the 2 phantom personal foul calls. I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but at this point, the way they've called games for Kansas City this year and in previous seasons, it's getting more and more difficult to write it off as a coincidence. I like the Bills. I want to find a way to bet the Bills in this game, but I'll tell you right now, at that line, I'm going to have to find another way to bet this game because I can't take the Bills if I'm only getting 1.5.
Yeah, I was with you, Jesse, yesterday on Buffalo, and it was tough to feel good about it because the Ravens thoroughly outplayed them in that regular season meeting, but we saw them get their revenge. And, of course, the Rams were really kind of thoroughly outplayed by the Eagles in the regular season meeting a couple months ago, and they didn't get their revenge, but they came pretty close. And now you've got KC in that revenge spot, although they did not look good against Houston. I told Teddy, I go back to the drive charts, not just looking at the stats, but even the drive charts. Texans should have won that game straight up. And KC's had so many narrow wins this year. You just wonder at some point, does that come in to bite them? But it should be a great game on Sunday. And once again, I'll have standalone free play videos once again for both conference championship games. Jesse's going to have free content this week for basketball and football. He's got a lot of solo videos as well on a daily basis. Teddy covers his opening line report coming. So it's just the beginning of the week. But we're already taking deep dives into these NFC and AFC championships here on WagerTalk TV. And Jesse, on the way out, let's look at the one other nighttime NBA game. You know, Teddy gave us something in that Chicago Clippers game, but there's one other night game tonight on Monday, and that's Jazz Pelicans. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Pelicans currently an 11-point home favorite, total 231.5.
So this is a situation where you have consecutive games in the same city, a 2-game home series for the Pelicans. So the Jazz lost 136-123 on Friday in New Orleans, and this is the second game of this 2-game set in New Orleans. And these type of 2-game sets, I often like to look at the losing team from the first match, especially if they're a dog in the second game. However, the Utah Jazz are a different animal. They're eyeing a lottery pick more so than a playoff spot. Perhaps both these teams are in that sort of situation. But the Pelicans are sort of feeling themselves right now. They've got Zion back in the lineup. They've got McCollum back. They're stringing some wins together. So I don't want to step in front of the Pelicans here with a Jazz team that plans to sit their top 3 scorers for this game. They got Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and John Collins all expected to miss tonight's game. And I think that's going to open up an opportunity in the player prop market. We got Keontae George, the starting point guard, the team assist leader. He's not a great shooter. He only averages 16.3 points per game, but he comes into this game as the number 1 guy, the go-to option. He will be the active leading scorer with the top 3 scorers out of the lineup. He did score 26 points on Friday, and I'm going to look at his PRA over 30.5. So the bookmakers aren't giving us anything for free here. They know what's going on. They know these other guys are resting or out of the lineup. This guy only averages 25.5 points, rebounds, assists on the season. So we're asked to add 5 to his regular production. But that's, a couple buckets and an extra assist or extra rebound. I think we can get there. I think it's an opportunity for him to fill the box score, and he's really the only guy that they'll have, their only regular scorer. So he's going to get a lot more looks in this game. I like Keontae George to go over 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists.
Like it. A little prop action from Jesse Schule here on Wager Talk today. We covered college football, pro football, and NBA in about a 10-minute span. Great job, and let us know what you've got going on at Wager Talk. We've got the 3-day special, a 7-day about to start tomorrow. What else you got going on at WagerTalk.com, Jesse?
Well, Steve, I didn't have the college football season I wanted to have. I didn't have the NFL season I wanted to have. But so far, I'm having the playoff seasons in both sports that I want to have. I'm 10-4 with college football in the postseason, 10-3 with NFL in the postseason. Feeling it right now, coming off that 5% win with the Bills yesterday. And I do have a 5% play on the Natty tonight. And it's not on the side because I've been giving out the side for free all week. So, if you want to see what it is, head to my page. Check it out.
Nice. Once again, he gave you an opinion on the side here, but his strongest play is a big one for the national championship in college football. Check that out, Jesse Schule, WagerTalk.com. And on the way out, we're going to do our Steam report. Gianni the Greek, as always, visiting us from Las Vegas, and we're going to look at some of the moves here. He's a sharp bettor. He knows the moves, and he follows the moves, and he gives it to us every day here on Wager Talk today. Ace, welcome to the show. Jump on in. Let me know what you're looking at. College football. Check that out, Jesse Schule, WagerTalk.
Everybody's focused on, and so far, it's been nothing but Ohio State money. I was surprised. I thought you were going to get Notre Dame when the public got to the window. I know the sharp bettors did step up and take the Notre Dame side. I talked about that last week. As soon as they hit it, they took Notre Dame at +8. They took Notre Dame even on the money line. And I thought this line, once it came down, the public would probably piggyback that. They like putting up a little to win a lot, and Notre Dame offers you that opportunity, especially on the money line. But that's not what I'm seeing. So far today, in the early action, they're tying in NBA with the night game, trying to get out ahead of tonight's game and have some free action, as we call it, by parlaying what they like early with the night game. And I can tell you 7 out of 10 of those parlays are with Ohio State on the money line or with Ohio State minus the points. So there's definitely Ohio State money from the betting public. I have a future on Ohio State, a nice 5% future, but we got so much equity piled up. It's easy to make money off it. You got Notre Dame giving you all those points. Now, you touched on earlier, I heard right before me about take Notre Dame on the money line or lay the points with the Ohio State side. That kind of makes sense because Ohio State's won with margin every single game. Every single game they won by a touchdown or more, except that game against Nebraska where they were 25-point favorites. So they were expected to crush it, but they underperformed, obviously. So it seems like that's the trend with Ohio State's side. But Notre Dame, this is just a covering machine. I mean, you got to look. Not only did they outperform the betting market, rarely does a 14-1 team go 13-2 against the spread, especially when they're as high profile as Notre Dame. That's going to cost the books a lot of money. So they were not able to catch up with Notre Dame, meaning the market never corrected itself with that Notre Dame side. That's what's interesting to me going into tonight's game, like how this play out. Will the trend continue where Notre Dame does beat this Ohio State team, money line, or does Ohio State blow them out? Again, I think the books will be cheering for that Notre Dame side. I already let you know where the sharp money is there. Now, in college basketball, here's what we got. Some college basketball plays we jumped on early on. 874 Harvard -6, 876 Yale -16, 877 under 154 Columbia Princeton, 888 Penn State -7, 883 under 162 Fresno New Mexico, 885 Georgetown +9, 879 Brown +8. I have not released any of those to subscribers. I do move them. I want them to win because I do take a percentage of the account, but I don't release anything unless I already have a strong lean that way or there's multiple groups confirming and we could still get down at a good number. Also have some NBA as well. 523 Phoenix Suns plus the 8.5. They took all the 8.5s out. That's why you're looking at 8 right now. The reason you're not looking at 7.5 or 7 is because more than enough money's coming the other way on the favorite. They also went under 237 and under 117 in the first half. But keep in mind, they bet the over 233 overnight. So that's kind of getting out ahead of the public that's betting this game over. They moved it up even higher for them. And I think now they're just going to come back and playing a middle, which is a really nice middle. If you could go over 233, under 237, 238, that's a nice little middle, even in the NBA. Finally, in the NHL, we got New York Islanders that got hit at -170, 175, 180, 185. Surprised it keeps climbing up because looking at the back end, the public that's bet that game again hasn't gotten much action, NHL, but I haven't seen many bets on the Islanders except for the sharp accounts. I have seen money on Columbus from some of the recreational accounts. Now, early NFL action. Usually the betting public doesn't bet until game day, 24 hours to kickoff at the earliest. But when you're talking standalone games, playoff conference championship, everybody's been following the season and the playoffs. Most already have their opinion formed, and you saw a little bit of action early from the Sharps. They took the Kansas City side, no surprise. Kansas City at home, undefeated against an almost 500 team like Buffalo on the road. But I think you're going to get enough Buffalo money from the recreational bettors because I'm already seeing that on the Buffalo side. They're taking Buffalo. They're taking Buffalo money line. Again, they figure why take the 2 points? And they're teasing Buffalo. Buffalo being teased with, which actually is a good teaser. You're wonging it, but unfortunately they're teasing it with Ohio State. Again, it'll probably win if Ohio State, they should win this game. 8-point favorites usually do. 9-point favorites, but we know we don't use teasers when it comes to college football because of the variance in scoring. So it's a bet that may cash, but I don't think it's a good bet. As far as the Philadelphia side, no one expected that 4.5 to stay there against Washington because we just watched this game not long ago. What was that? The 22nd of December. And Philadelphia closed as -4-point favorites at home, total of 47. Yes, they lost that game, but they were -3 in turnovers, including fumbles, which we know there's a lot of randomness involved. Now, will Washington continue to get lucky like they've been doing, breaking history more or less in fourth down? winning by margin, 4 or 5 turnover margin like they did against Detroit? That's the question I think we need to answer. So far, the public seems to have answered it because they're taking Washington as well. Again, 90+% of the public money won't come in until late in the week and more or less leading in the kickoff. But the early action, because they're off today, MLK, and they're parlaying a lot of this basketball action with the NFL action on next weekend, next Sunday, trying to get some free bets in play. And they're tying them up with both dogs. They're tying them up with the Skins, and they're tying them up with Buffalo. That's some of the information I have for early Monday morning.
Hey, Gianni, you stole my thoughts, man. I was going to ask you about that teaser because, I thought Kansas City Chiefs last week was maybe the best NFL teaser I'd seen all season, and obviously a limited card to tie that up with. And I was saying you could use Ohio State as one of your options. And the Bills right now plus 1.5, 2 are going to look like a pretty good teaser when it comes to Sunday. So very interesting to hear you say they are taking them down to 2.5.
Should we break the rules, Steve? Like there's you should never say never or always. You know what I mean? There's sometimes that it's a coin flip. But I'm just so programmed not to do certain things I almost don't want to. But I did see last week or during the playoffs, I saw parlay from the Sharp accounts in the college football playoffs. So I don't know if maybe when it comes to the playoff time, the reasoning changes a little, but I've never seen that. I've moved since the late 90s when I was at the Stardust, and I've never been asked to bet a teaser in college football till this playoff season. So again, I'm not going to turn anyone off from teasing Ohio State. I've just been programmed to not really look at teasers when it comes to college football.
Well, and something else to keep in mind, it also depends on how much you like the other one, because I thought Kansas City Saturday is the best teaser I'd seen all season. So if it's a really strong side, you could take a slightly weaker side to make it an advantage play still. So it depends on how much you like Buffalo as a teaser. And with a total of 48, it's not quite as strong. Although Kansas City doesn't win by more than 7 against anybody. So I guess you could say the Bills are a pretty good teaser for that reason. Thing I'll point out, too, about the Ohio State game is the line should be sharper now than it would be in September, obviously. And with a total of 45.5 and 2 very good defensive teams, you could make an argument this is more NFL-ish than a normal college football game. But as I said earlier, most college championships are double-digit blowouts. In that case, the point spread probably won't matter.
The teaser saved me. I had a nice future on Baltimore, man, a beautiful future. And fortunately, I was able to open leg teaser with Buffalo yesterday because I have some outs that let me put in one leg. So that saved me a little bit. I urged my guys to do the same thing if they had that opportunity. And I'm being tempted to already lock it in early in the week, maybe even with that Buffalo side. But I haven't touched it yet. That's a good point, though, as far as the efficient lines. It's as efficient as it comes. I mean, all the money that's being bet, and you're still seeing it sit around that 8.5 number. They're not afraid of it. But I think you're right. If you're ever going to tease a college football game, you probably should do it in the playoffs. You probably should do it in a national championship where the line's most efficient and, more importantly, with a low total. You kind of have all of that tonight.
Yeah, it looks like an NFL game. If you took away the name of the teams, you'd think maybe that was an NFL game on the board. Hey, great stuff. If you're liking this, check out Last Call Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, NFL Last Call Sunday at noon Eastern. We do the same thing, quick hitters here with the inside information. And, of course, Gianni, you do it as well with the Steam Room. Tell everybody more about that at WagerTalk.com.
Yes, sir. It's once a week, and maybe going to bump it up where my subscribers get to come in there, ask me any question they want. We go over plays that are coming in. We go over money management. More importantly, there's a lot of actionable information that I then can't share with subscribers because it's time sensitive. But if you're in there, you get it. And more importantly, it keeps me accountable. Like I had to show up on Sunday yesterday and let them know that I'm down so far. I mean, it's the first month, but I had a terrible Saturday, which cost me. And I like that. It forces me to be accountable to those guys that trust me for my information, because I then got to come back and face those people. And you can't make excuses. You just got to keep it real. Tell you when I win, tell you when I lose, and hope that bettors are managing their risk correctly so that when they zoom out, it tells the whole story. Because when in doubt, zoom out. And in a small sample size, we could look like heroes or we could look like zeros. But what matters most is when you zoom out, have no doubt. And long term, God bless America. What a country. You could bet sports and make a living.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's why you and I do these shows. We do the videos, we do the interactions, because it makes us better cappers and bettors as well, the more we go back and forth with it. So it's a fantastic concept. And if you want to bet like a pro, get the steam room for Gianni the Greek. And just once again, WT.buzz/VR for Vegas Runner. We will see you soon. You do this every day as well, so check back every day here on Wager Talk Today as well. Good luck.
Stay hot, bro. Stay hot. Stay hot. You had an amazing 2024.
Good luck tonight if you tease them.
Stay hot. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll catch up soon. And once again, he's on Last Call 7 days a week. You get more ace than anybody here on Wager Talk TV because he's basically doing this daily for you. If you're liking it, thumbs up, like, comment below. We read the comments, we reply back. Subscribe, click that bell for instant alerts. And stay tuned. We got opening line report here in about 5 minutes. Teddy Covers ready to go, breaking down the conference championships. Also college and pro basketball content here on the channel today as well. And the Prez will be back tomorrow at noon Eastern. Don't you fret. It was Prez free zone for just one day. The Prez will be back tomorrow on Tuesday. I'll actually be on as a guest Wednesday here on Wager Talk Today. And you can also check my free play videos throughout the week. And if you like my best bets, 5-0 in the NFL playoffs, 29-12 the last 2 months. Basketball in full swing as well. Check out that buy 3 days, get the 4th day for free. It's your last opportunity right now. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And stay tuned. Opening line report is coming up next.